So welcome to another Read All Month with Me reading wrap-up style video. If you're new to the style video from me, instead of me waiting for the very end of the month to arrive before I sit down and talk about everything all at once, I prefer to take you throughout the entire month and just talk about the books as I finish them. I like to timestamp everything too, just because I find it fascinating for me to see like how fast or slow I've read certain books. Sometimes I'm really much in a reading stride where it's like all I want to do. Sometimes life is lifing and things take a little bit longer to get through. But I'm excited for another month of reading. I had some really cool things that I was looking forward to reading, so I'm hoping to get to them throughout this month, but it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna talk about all of the books that I read, spoiler free of course. I'm just gonna give you the general gist, my thoughts on it, my rating, all that good stuff. And I would love to hear your thoughts on these books as well. If you've read any of them, if you're interested. And of course, I'd love to know just what you're reading in general. Let me know what stood out to you. If you have any recommendations, I'm always down for more. But let's just get into my first read of the month. And I'm gonna be honest, we did not start off strong this month. This was not a great start, but it was a start, I suppose. I was starting to read the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver over probably the second half of last year. I want to say I started them around summertime. There's 5 books total, but I hadn't read the last one yet, and it's been like probably 3 or 4 months since I read the 4th one. So I was like, I definitely want to just finish this series. It hasn't been like a top tier favorite series for me or anything, but hasn't been bad. It's been enjoyable enough. It's basically like a Canadian cowboy romance, if you will. But finally got around to reading the 5th and final one, Hopeless. I actually was excited enough because the male main character is Beau. I want to say he's the middle brother of the 3 brothers that are main characters throughout the series, and he's been kind of elusive throughout this series. He was in the military. We don't really know much about him. He's home now. He's been through some stuff, and I was intrigued by him. Like, what's your story? What's gonna happen? But unfortunately, this book, I'll be honest, kind of sucked. So he is home now. He's seen in the town as this like military hero. And honestly, he doesn't really want anything to do with that title. He's still feeling a type of way about how things kind of ended for him. I don't want to get into it too much because that would be kind of spoilery. I feel like that's one of the only interesting things about this book, honestly, is just his backstory, but even that, it wasn't that interesting. And our female main character is Bailey. She is like the outcast of the town. People don't really like her. They look down upon her. She came from a bad family situation, and a lot of people just don't really take too kindly to her. She just kind of is the bartender at a local bar and just kind of keeps to herself, and she has hopes and dreams of moving away one day. Beau kind of pities her, I guess for lack of a better word, and he ends up kind of coming up with this plan that he thinks would help both of them. He decides they should do a fake engagement where it'll get the town off of his back and get like the women to stop swarming all over him, and it would maybe give her a leg up because his family is seen as wonderful and great and all these things. So maybe it would make her seem better if she's with somebody that is seen in a better light compared to how she is on her own. However, I just thought it was kind of icky. I'm gonna be honest. He is 35, she is 22, and granted, they didn't really have a relationship when she was underage, but he always knew of her. Her family lived next door. He always kind of felt bad for her. So like he knew of her. And I feel like just, I don't know, there was a little too much there. The age gap was a little much. An age gap doesn't always bother me. It's very circumstantial. And in this circumstance, I didn't like it. Not to mention, it is rehashed so many times in this book. It's even in the book description that she's a virgin. That's like one of her personality traits, is that she's a virgin. So it just all felt very icky. Didn't love it. There were parts where the banter was funny. The writing itself was very fast paced, so it's not like I was bored necessarily reading it. I just didn't like what I was reading. And honestly, one of my biggest gripes about the book is that Bailey has this bad home life. She's this outcast. People don't like her. But we never really dive into what happened with her family. There's like moments where her brothers are in the scene, but like we never know any details about like her past or her family. None at all. So I'm like, why was that even like a character arc when there was nothing to arc, you know? I don't know. I ended up giving it 2 stars instead of 1 star, just because the beginning of the book I thought did have potential. Like there was some intrigue there. I was like, okay, we're gonna get to know more backstory. I don't love this age gap situation, but at least like there could be some interest with these characters. These characters were honestly as interesting as a stale loaf of bread. Like it was giving nothing. I feel like this was a terrible way to end this series, honestly. Like I said, it wasn't like the most terrible thing. nothing was going on. That was exciting to me. So not a great start to the month. Solid 2-star there, but I'm happy to say I finished the series at least. I won't have to wonder what that 5th book would have been like, but maybe that would have been better. Moving on to bigger and better things. I did finish this book like 2 days ago. I just forgot to update yesterday, so I'm here today. But over the last like day and a half or so, I've been reading another book that's been going much better. I've been listening to an audiobook that's been going pretty well. So I have other things that I'm like excited about in the book world. So I'll have more to report on soon. Honestly, potentially tomorrow, because I think I might finish the one I'm physically reading tonight. That's my goal, at least. Okay, I did end up finishing my next book last night. I was reading Made for Each Other by Lynn Painter. Lynn Painter writes a mixture of, some of her books are like YA rom-coms, and then she also does more adult rom-coms. This is one of the more adult ones. And honestly, I love both like types of books that she writes. It just kind of depends on what my mood is. Oh, Clionadh's here. Did you want to talk about the book too? I'm pretty sure I picked this up at a small bookstore in Montana when I was visiting my best friend last summer. So this has been sitting on my shelf for a hot minute. And honestly, this was so freaking cute. This was so fun. We were in Atlanta for the weekend, this past weekend, and we were heading home on Sunday, I guess February 1st, which is when I finished the last book I talked about, Hopeless. But there was still like, you know, time to kill in the car on the drive home. So I did start this one and I've just been kind of reading it here and there ever since. And it's just, it was such a cute story. Our female main character is Abby. She works as a house cleaner. She also works at a grocery store. She just kind of picks up a bunch of odd jobs while also trying to attend school and work on her dreams, all that good stuff. But she's definitely just like, you know, regular working class kind of person. At the beginning of the book, she can't be in her apartment because it's being like fumigated for like an infestation or something like that. So she decides to hunker down at one of her clients' houses, this millionaire dude who just happens to be out of town for that week. Well, then the next morning, she ends up running into his parents. She tries to explain herself like, so sorry, my name is Abby. They're all excited because it turns out the owner of the apartment, Declan, has been giving this fake story to his like friends, family, colleagues, whatnot, that he has this girlfriend named Abby to get them off his back. He very much does not care about a relationship. He's just trying to focus on his career, doing rich man things. So basically, Declan ends up propositioning Abby to kind of act as his stand-in girlfriend for real life events coming up so that he can further kind of keep his ruse going. And he has some things that can benefit her in her life as well. So it kind of ends up being a good mutual fake dating sort of situation. It was funny. It was so sweet. I loved how kind of slow their relationship grew. It wasn't one of those things where like they very much were into each other and were just pretending not to. They were very much just like strangers, very opposite, just kind of doing this for the bit. But then like watching their relationship grow, watching their friendship really get stronger, watching them open up to each other. It was so sweet. The banter was so funny. I loved the different jokes that were made throughout this book. Declan was like the sweetest man in the world. Like, only a woman could write a rich millionaire man this wonderful. I loved the two of them together. I had such a great time reading this book. It was so lighthearted. It was so fun. I quite enjoyed this one. This might be one of my favorite books Lynn Painter's ever written, actually. And I kind of went into it with no expectations. I was just like, okay, this will probably be a fun time, right, Clionadh? So yeah, I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I had a great time with it. This one was a lot of fun. I am still working on my audiobook, which I'll probably finish within the next day or two. And then I also started reading a thriller. Hello, Clionadh. Last night after I finished that book before I went to bed. You are all up in my bubble right now. And I am kind of flying through that because that's typically how thrillers go. So I'll probably have something to talk about again very soon. Are you sniffing my microphone? That's quite rude. Okay, I have 2 more books to report back. I did finish my Frida McFadden thriller last night, and I finished my audiobook this morning. So 2 things to talk about. Dear Debbie, Frida McFadden, this is one of her newer ones. It might be her newest one at this point. I can't keep track. Miss Frida, she churns out books so fast. And her thrillers, you know, they can be kind of hit or miss. But I know one thing's for sure is it's always going to be a fun time. It's always going to fly by, be a very fast read, and just keep me captivated. Even if I don't end up loving it overall by the end, it was still like fun to be in it. You know what I mean? But Dear Debbie was honestly such a good time. This is probably one of my favorite ones she's written. I gave it 4 stars. I just thought it was so fun. Our main character is Debbie. She writes an advice column called Dear Debbie. And A lot of her advice has to do with like giving her like women she's writing to very blunt advice on like, oh goodness, hi Clionadh. Okay. Literally she was nowhere to be seen. It's like she heard me talking to you and she was like, oh, I gotta say something. But a lot of the advice that she writes to these women in her advice column like are very blunt and kind of funny about like ways to solve their problems, you know? But Debbie's life is kind of going out of control. Her teenagers don't want to talk to her. They're going through their own things. Her husband is going through his own stuff. Her work is going crazy. She has issues with the neighbors. Like, so many aspects of her life are going weird. So she decides she is tired of all of these problems happening and she wants to take her own advice and solve these problems. I'm being very vague because you can't really say too much about a thriller because it would ruin the whole thing, but very much a story about like female rage, absolute chaos, and lots of payback. It was absurd. It was funny. It was wild and kooky. It was a fun time. It was a fun time. It was very unhinged. And you know what? I loved every second of it. There were parts in the book where I was just like, how did we get here? But you know what? I loved it. But now on the topic of unhinged in a bad way, I listened to Jennette McCurdy's newest novel, Half His Age. I listened to the audiobook of her memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, couple years ago and I loved it. I loved it so much. Like hearing her tell her own story about her past and like what she went through as a child star. It was horrible and it was difficult to listen to, but it was so good. And I was so excited for her to write like her first actual novel. And now she said in interviews and stuff that there were, you know, things in this book that were inspired by things that she went through. Like she did go through an age gap relationship at one point in her life. And I'm sure some of like the emotions and feelings from that were reflected in this book. But this book was just, it was a bit much if I'm being honest with you. It was not a very long book, I will say that. Like listening to it, it was only like a 4.5 hour book and the chapters were very short. Like some of the chapters were only like 1 or 2 minutes long. So I imagine reading this book, you would physically fly through it really fast. This takes place in the perspective of our 17-year-old main character, Waldo. She's a senior in high school. She has not so great of a home life. She's not so great of a person. She definitely has some issues she needs to get over herself. She has a major shopping addiction. She has major kind of obsessive tendencies. She ends up forming a bit of an obsession with her high school English teacher, Mr. Corgi. One thing leads to another, and eventually Mr. Corgi reciprocates, and it turns into a very inappropriate sexual relationship between her and her 40-something-year-old teacher. Obviously, the point of the book is to make you feel uncomfortable. It's very raw. It's dark with just like, you know, the underage age gap teacher student situation. It's not a fun time. And there were things I did like about it. I found it to be very easy to want to keep knowing what was going to happen next. But overall, it just wasn't my favorite thing. I'm honestly still waffling between what I want to rate it. It definitely was the kind of book that didn't really have a plot. It was almost like a slice of life, but like in a bad way. Because I feel like in my mind, slice of life has more of a positive connotation, but it almost read as like it wasn't written in diary entry format, but it almost felt like that. It's just like this chunk of Waldo's life from really the beginning to the inevitable end of her relationship with Mr. Corgi. And some of the scenes were just like so disgusting and vulgar and almost to the point where it felt like it was just trying to be shock value rather than adding to the purpose of the story. Like I felt like the gross scenes started to get a bit redundant, like it wasn't really adding anything new for me. It was definitely one of those stories where obviously Waldo is a victim in this because she was underage. Mr. Corgi went too far. But it was definitely a situation where every single character in this book sucks. Everybody is horrible. And just some of the verbiage in the writing really took me out of it sometimes. There was a time when the R slur was used and it's like, that was kind of a choice. There's other ways to depict like somebody not being a great person without throwing slurs in there, in my personal opinion. There were also some real nasty verbiage going on in some of those scenes, and I don't know, I'm still torn. I feel like overall I didn't really like the book, but I can't say that I hated it either. I'm so torn because like at first I gave it a 2, but then I went back and gave it a 3. But as I'm talking about it, I'm literally saying I didn't really like the book. And I feel like that's a 2 for me. Yeah, I'm changing it back to a 2. I track everything on Goodreads, by the way. I mean, you're welcome to follow me. I just use it for personal updating. I don't write reviews or anything. But yeah, I think I'm settling on I didn't love it. Like, it was captivating in the sense that I wanted to keep going with it. Like, I never felt compelled necessarily to DNF it completely. But there were times where I was just like, what was the reason for this? I don't know. And maybe I just wasn't like the target audience for this book. I'm not sure who is, but to be fair, I don't really go out of my way to read like darker things very much. I do prefer things that are more, they don't even have to be lighthearted, but I just like something to not make me feel sick inside. And this was definitely not that book. But I am curious to see what she will write in the future because, again, I loved her memoir so much. So maybe this one just wasn't perfect for me, and that's okay. But, you know, it is what it is. I did decide, though, I think the next thing I want to read is my reread for the month. I feel like I want something that I'm guaranteed to love. I feel like I need that after finishing that audiobook. So I'm going to read The Dead Romantics again by Ashley Poston. I read this like, gosh, 2 or 3 years ago. It's been a little while now, so I'm excited to dive back into this one. Right, Clionadh? She likes this book too. I finished my reread. It was so fun diving back into The Dead Romantics. I read this probably 3 years ago and I loved it so much, and I loved it so much again. It felt like watching a comfort movie. It's such a good story. I gave it 5 stars the first time and I kept the 5 stars my second time around. This is about our main character, Florence. She is a ghostwriter who can see ghosts. Her family owns a funeral home, so there's like a bunch of spooky stuff involved with that. She ends up going home to help plan her father's funeral, unfortunately. And when she gets home, she stumbles upon a certain ghost that she's meant to help, who just so happens to be her new editor for the author she ghostwrites for that she just met the day before. So there's just so many weird ties happening. She's trying to figure out, like, honoring her father's will, planning the funeral, also figuring out what her editor Benji needs in order to move on. It's so heartwarming. It's so wonderful. She's struggling to finish writing her book as well that she's meant to be ghostwriting for. She writes romance novels, but she's kind of in a weird place where she doesn't really believe in love anymore. So she's struggling to finish this book. There's so many little things going on and they all flow together so well. It's such a wonderful story. I just love all the emotions that I feel throughout it. I feel like it touches on topics like love and grief and just so many things. It's just such a great book. I love this one. I love this. I'm so glad I reread it. I think my next read, however, though, is going to be some little short story novella-ish type reads. Every so often, Amazon comes out with these like Amazon originals for Kindle, whether it's on your physical Kindle or like the Kindle app if you don't have a Kindle. And they'll basically collaborate with 6 different authors, and each author will write a little novella underneath the same premise. So a couple years ago, they did their first ones, I believe, were like Valentine's themed ones called like The Improbable Meet Cute. And then they did like a Christmas themed one. Last year, they did like a Halloweeny themed one. Well, they're back again for more Valentine's-y romances, and it's the Improbable Meet Cute Second Chances. So there's 6 little novellas in here. So I think my goal, at least, if I'm able to do it, is starting today for the next 6 days, I would like to read 1 a day. But we'll see how it goes. We do go out of town on Saturday, which would be the 6th day. So we'll see if I end up, committing to reading all of 1 each day. But that's the goal. That's the goal. And I'll try to update you daily as well. But if I end up like putting some of these together and talking about them all at once, that might just have to be how it is. But that's my goal, is to do that. I hope it's good. Sometimes these are terrible, but sometimes they're really fun and lighthearted and just like a fun little good time. Okay, well, so far so good. I have finished the first 2 books. I finished the first one last night and I finished the second one this morning. So far I'm definitely on the path of doing 1 a day. I do think I'm going to break that because I think I'm going to end up finishing them sooner because I feel like I'll probably end up reading the 3rd one tonight and so on and so forth. So far I'm really enjoying them. So far the first 2 have been 4-star reads. I feel like these novellas were so stinking cute. We're off to such a strong start and I'm so curious to see how the rest go. I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much. It could just be a situation where the first 2 are great, but we'll see. We'll see. Well, the first novella was Accidentally Yours by Christina Lauren. This was so freaking cute. Oh, I loved it so much. So our female main character is Veronica. She accidentally joins in on a Zoom meeting with these tech bros that she's not supposed to be in and basically ends up being super sassy and like, your marketing sucks, yada, yada, yada. Well, she ends up getting an email from the company's CEO basically just being like, hey, I liked how blunt you were. Can you help us? The novella is filled with a bunch of different email exchanges between them that quickly go into more of a cutesy, flirty territory. It was just all very cute. There were ties in with someone she thought she knew and things like that. It was so fun. I feel like there was just so much like yearning with this. It was just so sweet. I feel like it was just such a wholesome story. It wasn't just like a quick little smut scene or anything like that by any means. It was just sweet. It was funny. It was very, very cute. And then the second book was Time Will Tell by Hannah Bonham Young. I was excited but nervous for this one because I've loved some of her books and really didn't like her most recent books. So I was a little nervous, but this ended up being also just so wonderful. Like I said, I've given the first 2 4 stars so far. I don't see myself ever giving one of these like 5 stars just because it's hard with a novella, but absolutely top tier. These have been 2 of my favorites I've ever read from these little Amazon original Kindle books. So this story is basically kind of a story of how these 2 characters met because of a time capsule existing. When our female main character's grandmother passes away, she receives a letter basically saying like, hey, by the way, I had a secret love with this woman, Martha, way back in the day, but back in her time, that wasn't really something they could really act on. So they kind of ended up going their separate ways, having their own traditional families. And this letter was kind of just a way to kind of bring up the full truth now that she's passed. The 2 of them had made a time capsule together back in the day, and our female main character now has the letter, the information, and she has the time capsule. She ends up reaching out to the grandson of the other woman, basically to be like, hey, do you know anything about this? Do you have the key by chance? I would love to be able to open this and talk about this with you. This novella is also just full of like email and text exchanges between the 2 of them. It was just, oh, it was so sweet and so, so cute. It's all leading up to basically just when they finally get to meet in order to open this time capsule together. But it was just so sweet. And honestly, this one felt like it could have been a full book. Like that only just felt like really the first chunk of a book. This definitely could have had a full story with it. It was so wonderful. Again, just so much like yearning and excitement. And again, it wasn't just like a quick little smut scene, because I've read some of these little Kindle books, you know, and like they're short. They're usually no more than 100 pages, sometimes as low as 50. And sometimes it's almost just like just a quick little spice scene. Like it's not anything with substance, but these 2 have been just so stinking cute. They brought me a lot of joy the last 2 days. So far so good. I think so far this has been the best set of these little books, and I'm very excited to continue on. So I'll probably be reporting back very soon with at least 1, if not more, of these that I have finished. Okay, I'm back 2 days later. I'm losing my voice a little bit, so if I sound a little funny, bear with me. It's partially why I didn't update yesterday, because my voice was funny, but I don't know when it's going to get better, so I might as well update before I am many, many, many books deep and then have too many things to talk about. But over the last 2 days, I did finish the other 4 novellas. I've completed all of them. I did read them faster than I expected, but they were so just cute and easy and fun to fly through. Unfortunately, I was correct that the first 2 books ended up being the best of the 6. They just kind of progressively got not as good, but they weren't terrible. The last 2 weren't great, but they still weren't like the worst thing I've ever read. So the third one was Second Act Romance by Julie Soto. This one was a 3-star for me. It wasn't horrible, but it was fine. Clionadh, what are you doing? Was that one your favorite? So this one was more so about like 2 theater co-stars. They'd worked together on a show a long time ago. They kind of, you know, went their own separate ways, didn't talk anymore, and now they're back together for this specific show, honestly kind of as a last minute thing because so many of the cast members are sick and they can't perform, so they had to bring in like other people. And basically it's just kind of like a second chance sort of situation where like their chemistry is getting reignited. It was okay. Again, it wasn't bad, but I didn't like it nearly as much as the first 2. I liked the idea of the whole second chance sort of thing, but I don't know. I wasn't like super vibing with their chemistry. It was only okay. It was cute. It was cute and light and fluffy. The fourth one was A Play for Love by Trilina Pucci. This one was also a 3-star read. I do think I might have liked this one more than the third one though, but like they were still in 3-star territory. In this one specifically, we have Rory and Oliver. They had shared like an English class back in college. They shared like a very spectacular stage kiss all those years ago. And now we're fast forwarding to present day a few years later. Rory is at this like Valentine's brunch and Oliver just so happens to be performing as like a sexy Cupid basically at this brunch. They end up, you know, noticing each other, reconnecting, and spending a memorable day together, which ends up resulting in them kind of pursuing a little bit of a long distance thing. It was very cheesy. It was very fluffy. It was not anything like super substantial because there really isn't that much built up between these characters. Like they shared one stage kiss years ago and now we have like one great day together before leading to their kind of long distance sort of relationship. But overall it was very cute. I liked the little ties and the way it all wrapped up at the end. It was adorable, albeit a bit cheesy, but you know, sometimes a little bit of cheesy is fun. And then we are on to the 2 that I read yesterday. The 5th one was Death to Valentine's Day by Catherine Cowles. This one I feel like had potential. It just ended up being there was too much going on. I gave it only 2 stars. It ended up not being super great. So our main character is still recovering from a really bad breakup and now it's Valentine's Day. She's not feeling great. Her friends end up kind of forcing her to join them at this Death to Valentine's Day party. So she ends up going with them. Not only is her ex there, she ends up kind of rekindling things with her ex's brother who she had a friendship with and maybe there might be a little bit of chemistry there. But then also a murder happens. So there's like a murder going on, a murder investigation. There's a really bad snowstorm. So now they're all trapped in this thing. Again, there was kind of a lot going on. I did kind of like this right person, wrong time sort of trope with the fact that like maybe the brother is who she should have ended up with in the first place. And now they're maybe getting the chance to experience that. And I liked the idea of there being the murder mystery involved because it made it a little bit more interesting, but I just felt like there were too many things happening in such a short novella. There wasn't enough time to really build up the different aspects of what was happening between the romance, the drama with the ex, the murder. Like there was too much, just a little bit too much. Maybe we should have cut like one of those things out because really the murder felt like such a unimportant side plot given everything else that was happening. I feel like it had potential, but it just didn't quite hit it for me. And last but not least was Valentine's Sleigh by Nevessa Allen. Again, this one had so much potential because there was kind of a spookier element to it. So one of our main characters, Noah, he is a grave digger and he's working the night shift on Valentine's Day. He's kind of feeling a type of way because earlier that day he had to bury someone who he went to high school with, you know, like 15 years ago. And they weren't really close or anything, but he's just kind of feeling this like existentialism about the fact of that happening. Well, suddenly there's a knock coming from beyond the grave. It's actually her, the girl he had to bury earlier, trying to crawl her way out of the grave because she got buried when she was actually still alive. It's a little weird, but you know, it kind of turns into a thing about like figuring out like, was her husband like just trying to kill her? What's going on? What was the motivation? Also, sparks are flying between them, but really it did not make a lot of sense. It's like, I don't know. It just felt like this girl came out of the grave and she was just like, I want you now. Like it happened so abruptly. And especially because they didn't really have any sort of relationship in the past. Like they knew of each other because they went to the same high school, but they weren't friends or anything. So it just felt very, I don't know. It didn't make a lot of sense. But I did appreciate just the creativity with it, with the whole grave digger. She got buried unintentionally. It was all bizarre. It was fun, but it wasn't great. So that one also got a 2-star. But I feel like for the most part, these 6 little novellas, they were fun to read. They were fun little quick, you know, novellas to just spend my time with. I enjoyed them. I feel like overall, this might have been my favorite bunch of this like series that Amazon has done. They were entertaining enough. Moving on to some other things. I've been listening to an audiobook over the last few days, Any Trope But You. I've been listening to it while I run mostly, and today I was listening to it while I got ready for the day. I'll give more updates later. And then yesterday on Libby, the first book of the Game Changers series, which is what the Heated Rivalry show that everyone is talking about is based on, that became available yesterday. So I did start reading that a little bit. I haven't watched the show yet. I wanted to read the first 2 books first because I know the show is like more so based on the second book. I heard there's like ties to the first book into the show as well, but I knew for sure I wanted to read the first 2 books before watching the show. So I'm gonna work on reading this book, and the second one should be available soon as well. What are my holds saying? It just says available soon, so hopefully soon. In a perfect world, I'll be able to read both of them this month so I can watch the show even sooner. Although I say that, I really haven't been in a TV show mood lately. I've very much just been in a reading mood. I feel like that's why I was flying through those novellas, because that's what I'm in the mood to do right now. Overall, having a good time. I'll check back in later. Hello, I have reading updates. I think I have a couple books to talk about, actually. I did finish reading Game Changer, the first book in the Game Changers Heated Rivalry series. I finished that Friday night, but then we went out of town for the weekend early Saturday, so I didn't have a chance to update. But I did finish that. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like I'm already very invested in this world. I'm very excited to continue on because I want to say there's 7 books or something like that as of right now. So very, very invested. These are queer hockey-related romances, and they're all interconnected standalones, although I think one of the later ones connects to book 2. I think it's a continuation of their story specifically, but I'm not that far yet. I will update as time goes on. But this one in particular was between Scott and Kip. Scott is on the New York hockey team, and Kip works at a smoothie shop, and Scott just happens to come in one day wanting a smoothie. They pretty much have an immediate connection. Scott keeps coming back to get more smoothies. Kip is very outwardly gay. Scott is extremely closeted. That is not something he's open about. But then Scott feels this very desperate need to get to know Kip more. So they start to form a little bit more of a connection, start seeing each other. It does happen very fast. The connection grows extremely quickly, which I'm not usually into. I like a little bit more of a slow burn yearning sort of thing. But I just could not get over how freaking cute they were. They were so sweet to each other. I really did enjoy just them navigating the hurdle of not only Kip seeing this semi-famous hockey player, but also navigating the fact that he's basically a secret because Scott isn't out with his sexuality. So it was just, there was so much tension with that, and I was so invested on how they were going to overcome it. I loved watching their relationship grow. I loved each of them as individuals. I loved it. It was so sweet. And then just yesterday morning, as I was getting ready while we were still in Savannah, I finished listening to the audiobook that I'd been listening to really over the last week or so. I was listening to Any Trope But You by Victoria Levine. This was cute. It wasn't one of my top favorites, but it was cute. It was an enjoyable listen. I enjoyed having it on kind of here and there over the last week. I mostly listened to this when I went on walks and runs, but over the weekend I also listened to it when I was getting ready for the day. Our main character is Margot. She is a best-selling romance author, and she's super popular, very well loved. Well, then someone hacks into her computer and leaks all this stuff from this file that she had on her computer, the secret file basically called Happily Never Afters, where it's alternative endings to every romance book she's written where things don't work out. And that just turns into ultimate chaos where she's basically canceled now. Everyone is super upset with her, which is so interesting to me because I feel like if something like that happened in real life, I would have just seen it as a creative exercise. I wouldn't have seen it as your books were all a lie or anything like that. So all that craziness goes down right at the beginning. Her sister ends up basically encouraging her to go on this trip to Alaska for, I want to say 6 weeks, so she can kind of find herself, maybe reinvent herself a little bit. Margot was playing around with the idea of switching genres entirely because she's very jaded to love. She doesn't really believe in it, hence the Happily Never After folder. When she gets to Alaska, very remote, no internet sort of thing, very low key, very opposite of what she's used to. She ends up having an immediate run-in with Forrest, who helps run the camp that she's going to. And basically over the course of the next many weeks, it almost just feels like one trope after another keeps kind of occurring between her and Forrest. And as time is progressing, they find that they have a lot in common with each other. They can relate to each other a lot in a lot of ways with their family situations. They just grow a closer and closer bond, but they also come from very different worlds where he lives in remote Alaska and she lives out in LA doing book stuff. So they're trying to navigate, like, is this even possible? At the end of the day, I feel like a lot of their issues could have been resolved maybe with some therapy, but overall, it was still just like a cute, fun story. I liked watching her kind of fall in love with the idea of love. And it was cute. It was funny. It was quirky. I ended up giving it 3 stars because, like I said, it wasn't like one of my top favorites, but it was still fun and enjoyable to read. Yesterday, or I guess I should say 2 nights ago, the second Game Changers book, Heated Rivalry, did become available on my Libby app. So I read like a couple chapters Sunday night. And then yesterday I read a lot of it, actually. I read a lot of it on the way home, and I also read a lot before bed. So I'm almost done with Heated Rivalry, which I'm so excited because now I can just be fully invested in like this world and get into the show and everything like that. I actually have already watched the first episode because I felt like I read enough of the book that I could watch the first episode. And I'm loving it so, so much. I feel like I'm in such a good point of the book right now where I'm just so excited to see what happens. There's so much yearning. I'll talk about it more when I finish, but I'll probably finish it tonight. So I'll probably be back tomorrow. But I'm very, very invested in this world. It's been a lot of fun to read. Okay, as promised, I did end up finishing reading Heated Rivalry last night, and I just loved it. I'm very excited to continue this series. I have all the books already on hold on my Libby app. It's gonna be a little bit before they're all available, so I wanted to just go ahead and start holding them so that I can have them in the future. But I loved this. I love Shane and Ilya so much. I loved the yearning. Their story takes place over the course of like 9 years. So there is 9 years of like them getting closer, going from something super casual to something more strong and kind of like a forbidden thing, because as the title would suggest, they are rivals. They are basically like the top of their game for their respective hockey teams, and they have this big rivalry that's publicized, and it's very much like capitalized on, and really they don't like each other at all in the beginning. They kind of just fall into this thing where they have a very passionate, intimate relationship, but not in like a relationship sort of sense. It's very much a rivals to lovers sort of story. I loved just like how long it took place for, because even though it starts out spicy from the get-go, the actual like yearning and passion develops over such a long period of time, and that's what I loved about it. I don't love when things are too insta-lovey. I love that this really grew over the course of time. I did give it a 4-star and not a 5-star. As much as I am loving this universe, I do feel like it lacked a little bit of depth. Like, we got to know Ilya's story a lot more. I feel like Shane just kind of stayed just a guy throughout the whole story. I feel like there could have been a little bit more depth with the personalities specifically, but I did love watching these characters grow together. I feel like these read just super fast and I get super sucked into these worlds. The spicy scenes, like the first book, I feel like they do get a little repetitive after a while, but for the most part, I'm loving this story. I'm loving this world. I'm loving the show, by the way, as well as finishing the book last night. I also have watched 4 out of 6 episodes of the TV show, and I'm loving it. I'm gonna watch the next episode when I have dinner today, and I'm very excited for it. The way I can't stop listening to all the things she said from the club scene in the show, I've listened to it probably at least 30 times today, and that's not an exaggeration. So yeah, I'm very invested, and the hype is real for me, honestly. Like, I completely understand why this show and now the book series retroactively is becoming so popular. I get it. I love it. I'm loving the queer relationship building. I'm loving just the stories that are being told. I love it so much, and I'm so excited just to see where these other books go. I'm excited to see what the show does, because I have to imagine there's going to be another season because of how popular it is. I'm so stoked. I'm so stoked. Okay, hi. I have a book update. I actually have 2 books to talk about. One I finished like 3 nights ago, and one I finished 2 nights ago, and I've just forgotten to update. Bear with me. But I read Throne of Nightmares by Carrie Maniscalco. I'm actually supposed to have the physical copy, but it's been just like chilling in the mail. It's making its way to me very slowly. So eventually I will have this to put on my shelf, but until then, I will be waiting. And I'm glad that I decided just to check it out on Libby, because otherwise I'd still be waiting to read this one. This is part of the Prince of Sin series, which is like a spin-off series to her Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, which the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy had to do with, you know, our female main character and the Prince of Wrath. So then this spin-off series has kind of focused on each of the other brothers so far, the other Princes of Hell. There's 7 total, so I imagine there'll be 6 of these books, unless Wrath gets his own book, making a 7th book, like maybe a prequel, but I don't know if that's necessary since he was part of the trilogy. But anyway, this is the 3rd one of the Prince of Sin series. So far we've gone over, is it Envy and Gluttony? Why am I blanking? Yes, Envy was Throne of the Fallen, Gluttony was Throne of Secrets, and then this one, Throne of Nightmares, is Sloth. And I'll be honest, this was one of the ones I was the most excited about because Sloth was depicted to be like a big reader, like have these giant libraries in his estate, like all these cool book-related things. But this has been my least favorite so far, unfortunately. This one just felt different than the other two. It felt less high stakes. These are all part of like the romantasy world. There's always like that romance element with the fantasy, but I felt like the other 2 books were much more high stakes. This one felt very flat almost. It wasn't terrible. I ended up giving it 3 stars, but it just wasn't my favorite. Sloth really hates leaving his library. He just wants to spend all of his time there, and he's kind of forced to because this artifact is threatening to like cause problems. I don't want to get into it too much because it's fun to unravel for yourself, but he basically goes on this mission to find the Book of Nightmares. On his journey, he ends up kind of interacting with this regular mortal girl who just so happens to carry this like special portal stone. Her name is Lore. She's a librarian who is obsessed with all things books. She loves books so much. They end up kind of getting stuck on this journey together where she's trying to get back home. He's trying to find this book and save everything. And throughout this journey, basically she keeps transporting them through her favorite books, which sounds really cool in theory. I love the idea of being transported into my favorite books and my favorite worlds. But this just, again, it just didn't feel very high stakes. It just felt like they were just going through these stories. Like there were parts where they had to like, you know, fight off enemies. I'm not saying there were no stakes, but it just felt less than. And also there were just certain times where it like took me out a little bit. Like at one point, Prince Sloth referred to something as bookish, and I just can't see a world in which a Prince of Hell says bookish. And I love all the bookish things. I love cutie bookish stickers and book related things, but it's hard for me to see a Prince of Hell referring to something as bookish. I don't know. This one was just only okay. Also, I didn't really vibe with them together. It just felt like they were just 2 people working together for a similar thing. But I never got the romance element between them. Like even when it culminated eventually, I didn't see it. They just seemed like friendly acquaintances for the most part, like gaining more of a friendship as the book went on. But yeah, it was just okay. I definitely liked the other 2 more, and I have higher hopes for the upcoming ones. And then the other book I finished reading 2 nights ago, I actually binged it in one sitting because it didn't take me very long. I feel like I only read for like an hour and a half. It was pretty short. This was Bad Dolls by Rachel Harrison. I love Rachel Harrison's books. She writes very like feminine focused like spooky books, and they're so fun. They're all like so different. I always get very transfixed by them and very sucked into the story, and I've been wanting to read this one. I just hadn't done it yet, but I checked it out on Libby. It's basically 4 short stories in this book, and it's only like 130 pages. It's very short, so it didn't take me very long to read. But yeah, it was just basically a collection of 4 different stories, all 4 different kind of vibes. I wouldn't really consider them horror, more like Black Mirror-esque with some spooky elements, but I wouldn't really consider them scary. The first one had to do with this like weird magic 8-ball situation. The second one was like a bachelorette party turned a little bit more sinister. The third one was about like this very brutal dieting app. And the fourth one was about this strange porcelain doll. So they were all pretty different. They were all entertaining enough. It wasn't like my favorite thing I've read from her. I ended up giving this one 3 stars. I feel like normally I give her stuff closer to 4 stars. These weren't bad, but like they weren't anything that like completely like changed my life. They aren't things I'm going to be thinking about long term, but they were a fun, entertaining read for, you know, a little evening. I liked it. So yeah, I'm just going to continue on. There's still a couple more days left in this month. I'm hoping to finish my current audiobook by the end of the month. So I'll check back in if and when that happens. Okay, I have my final book updates for this video. Yes, updates. I did finish 2 more. I finished the physical book I was working on and the audiobook I was working on. I guess we'll do physical first. I started reading Lucy Score's Not Part of the Plan. I mean, I guess I finished it. I didn't just start it. I read Lucy Score's Not Part of the Plan. This is the 4th book in the Blue Moon series. This is an older series of hers, but she recently recovered all of the covers and they're very cutesy and adorable. And I picked all of them up as they released last year. And I've been slowly working my way through the series. It definitely doesn't hit as hard for me as some of her newer series, but they're still cute. They're still light and fluffy. They still have the elements of Lucy Score books that I enjoy, where side characters are really built up, especially with this series. There's 8 books total. So we're really getting a lot of different characters and different personality types. She's also so good at building up like a small town. I feel like I know these different locations. I can place myself in the small town of Blue Moon. They're cute, they're light, they're fluffy. This one had to do with Nico and Emma. Nico is the photographer friend of Summer from book 1, and Emma is the sister of Gia from book 2. Emma is in town kind of just really trying to see if she fits into this town. She's working at a local brewery. She is just trying to immerse herself in this town, see if she wants to be here long term. Nico is here visiting from New York because he's feeling a little bit lost with his work. He's feeling like he's kind of like having, you know, writer's block, if you will, but for photography. I don't know if there's a better term for that. But he basically is coming to this town to visit his friend Summer, hoping that it helps him miss his life in the city, essentially. Early on, he meets Emma, and very quickly he's infatuated with her, but he's very much the casual, just likes to have fun kind of guy. She is very much looking for just her person. She's very monogamous. She only wants something that feels right. She just wants a partner that feels aligned with her. She really, at the end of the day, isn't even looking for love. She just wants a practical partner, if you will, someone she can depend on. They quickly have like good banter going on. They're forming a bit of a friendship, and things start to go, as you would assume, not part of the plan. He ends up finding himself enjoying Blue Moon a lot more than he expected. She's finding herself feeling like she likes a little bit more of this adventurous side of her. It was cute. I did like it. I liked these characters. I thought they were fun. I kind of wavered between a 3 and a 4 star. I did like this one more than the 3rd book, and I gave that one a 3 star, but I also don't know if I'd say that this was my favorite of the series so far. I don't know what my favorite was. Honestly, maybe number 2. Number 2 was pretty fun, but I feel like I'm still gonna land on a 3. I feel like a 3 star just feels very like middle ground. Like sometimes a 3 can be leaning a little bit on the side, but sometimes it's still like, I enjoyed it, it just wasn't my favorite, and that's kind of where this one landed for me. So yeah, 4th book of the Blue Moon series completes. And then I did finish the audiobook that I was listening to. I feel like over the past week or so I was listening to this. I was listening to Get Over It, April Evans by Ashley Herring Blake. This is her newest book in the Clover Lake series. The first one came out last year. It was Dream On Ramona Riley. I think I'm remembering the name correctly. April is the best friend of Ramona. She lives in the town of Clover Lake. She's kind of down on her luck right now. She had to recently close her tattoo shop. She's feeling a little bit lost, a little bit broke. She ends up going to work at this retreat in the town to basically be like the art teacher of this retreat for the summer. She's also still very much feeling bitter about losing her longtime girlfriend a few years back, Elena, especially because she didn't just like have this breakup, like they were engaged, and Elena had ended up cheating on her and getting together with this new girl, Daphne Love, which just so happens to be her roommate at the retreat and the co-art teacher as well. Right away upon initial meeting, she is very bitter, very angry toward Daphne, and Daphne really doesn't understand why, because Daphne did not realize she was a part of this like cheating scandal. In her mind, Elena was single, and she's also currently dealing with the loss of Elena because they had just recently broken up when she comes to this retreat. So that's kind of where the story starts. They have a heart-to-heart very early on, figuring out each other and that they're all involved with Elena. They start to form a bit more of a friendship, and then they start to kind of help each other out a little bit. Daphne's always lived in this kind of bubble. She hasn't felt like she could explore her self, her queerness, her liveliness. So she kind of sets out on this adventure to just learn more about herself, doing fun, rebellious things, and just feeling more free and excited. And April is kind of learning to kind of cope with the things she's dealing with and kind of learning how to grow past that. All the while, they're forming more of a friendship, more of a connection. Things are blooming. It was very cute. It was very cute. I really enjoyed their dynamic because they were so different, but they meshed so well together. I really, really enjoy Ashley Herring Blake's books. She writes great queer romances, and I just think they're so fun. I quite enjoyed this one. I ended up giving it 4 stars. And I am so excited for the third one. It comes out later this year. Actually, it comes out in September. Take a Chance, Sasha Sinclair. Sasha was a very, very prominent side character in this book. She kind of helped orchestrate a lot of the fun, rebellious activities that went on throughout the summer. And I love Sasha. She just seems so cool, so mysterious, and I cannot wait to read her book. So very excited for that later this year. And I feel like that was a good end to this month of reading, which this month I ended up reading so many books. Granted, a chunk of them were like, you know, short stories, little novellas, but still ended up reading a lot. I'm doing my final count now. 18. That is a lot more than I typically do. I feel like closer to 10 is my sweet spot. But again, 6 of them were, you know, shorter novellas. There was also that shorter group of short stories from Rachel Harrison that I read. So, you know, probably closer to, you know, more like 13 or 14 full-size books. But still, I feel like it was a kind of an all over the place reading month. Like I had a couple duds, a couple meh, some great ones as well. You know, it was a fun time. Did I have any 5 stars this month? Oh, I did. Rereading The Dead Romantics was a 5-star for me. But as far as new books, no 5 stars, but definitely some ones that stuck out and were super fun. So yeah, excited for another month of reading. If you've missed it, my video before this one on this channel is picking out my TBR for March of books that I'm very excited about. Some very highly anticipated ones that I'm so stoked for. So yeah, it's going to be another fun month, hopefully. Don't know if I will ever top this number of books in a month, so this might be the most I will read in a month for this year. But it was just the hobby I was focused the most on this month, for sure. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you read any of these? What are you reading currently? I'm always down for more book recommendations. Let's chat down below. And until then, I will see you in the next one.